Let me tell you something up front. Don't mess with the mysteries of nature. There are things out there that your hard work and determination just can't conquer. I learned this the hard way during a night I'll never forget at Skinwalker Ranch. It all began when I decided to visit Skinwalker Ranch in northern Utah. This place is infamous for its eerie reputation, known as a hotbed for UFO sightings and paranormal activity. But what really caught my attention were the stories about skinwalkers, evil beings from Navajo legend that could transform into any animal they wanted. Despite all the warnings, I thought I could handle it. I was wrong. My guide for the night was Joseph, a security guard from the Ute Indian tribe. He was supposed to keep me safe, but from the moment we set foot on the ranch, I could tell he was uneasy. His eyes kept darting around, scanning the shadows that seemed to move on their own. "These lands are cursed," Joseph said quietly as we walked. "The skinwalkers are real, and they don't like strangers." As we walked deeper into the ranch, the night grew darker, and the air felt heavy, filled with an unnatural chill. I could feel the weight of the place pressing down on me, a sense of foreboding that I couldn't shake. Suddenly I heard it, a faint whispering, like voices carried on the wind. It seemed to come from all directions, surrounding us. I stopped, straining to hear more, but the sound faded away as quickly as it had come. Joseph grabbed my arm and whispered urgently, "We need to keep moving. It's not safe to stay in one place for too long." We pressed on, pushing through the dense brush and trees. After a while, we stumbled upon a clearing where strange symbols were carved into the dirt. These symbols were unlike anything I had ever seen, intricate and almost alive, like they were pulsing with some hidden energy. Joseph's face went pale when he saw them. "These are warnings," he muttered, his voice shaking. "Signs left by the skinwalkers to mark their territory. We need to leave, now." But I was drawn to the symbols, unable to look away. They seemed to call out to me, begging to be understood. As I bent down to take a closer look, the sky above us suddenly lit up with flickering lights, strange orbs that danced in the air, casting an eerie glow over the landscape. Joseph yanked me back, fear clear in his eyes. "We have to go," he shouted. "Now!" I finally listened, and we turned to run, but it was too late. Out of the shadows, a figure emerged. It was tall and twisted, its form shifting and changing, and then suddenly it transformed into a large wolf. Its eyes glowed a bright red, piercing through the darkness. My heart pounded as I realized what it was, a skinwalker just like in the stories. It let out a low, guttural growl and began to move toward us. "Run!" Joseph screamed, and we took off into the night. The branches scratched at my face, and my breath came in ragged gasps as I ran as fast as I could. Behind me, I could hear the skinwalker crashing through the underbrush, getting closer with every step. Desperate to escape, I veered left, hoping to lose it in the thick woods. But the creature was relentless. I stumbled and fell, hitting the ground hard. As I scrambled to get up, I saw a dim light flickering through the trees. Without thinking, I ran toward it. I burst into a small clearing where a lone cabin stood. An old man was outside, his expression calm, almost like he'd been expecting me. He quickly ushered me inside and slammed the door shut behind us. The inside of the cabin was dimly lit, filled with strange artifacts and ancient symbols painted on the walls. "You shouldn't have come here," the old man said, his voice grave and steady. "But now that you're here, I can tell you what you're up against." As he spoke, I noticed that the room was filled with items that seemed out of place. Animal skins hung on the walls, bones arranged in strange patterns, and a faint smell of something burning. The old man began to explain that skinwalkers were once powerful shamans who had gained the ability to transform into any animal they wanted. But in seeking more power, they became cursed, doomed to live forever as monstrous creatures. "They were drawn to the dark arts," he continued, his voice low and hypnotic. "They sought forbidden knowledge, and in return, they lost their humanity. Now they roam these lands, bound to this place, hunting anyone who dares to enter." As I listened to the old man, his voice low and rhythmic, something felt off. His words seemed to pull me in, like a spell I couldn't break free from. The way he moved, too smooth and deliberate, made me uneasy. I looked closer and noticed his hands, covered in the same strange symbols I had seen outside. My heart raced as I realized the truth. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. The old man's eyes flicked to mine, and for a split second I saw something sinister flicker across his face, a look of satisfaction. "I am a warning," he said softly, "and a reminder of the old ways." Suddenly the howling outside grew louder, the cabin walls shaking violently. The old man began chanting in a language I didn't understand, his voice rising above the chaos. The symbols on the walls glowed brightly, casting eerie shadows. But then, something shifted. The glowing symbols started to twist and change, forming new patterns that seemed to pulse with a dark energy. I felt a pull, like something was trying to draw me closer to the old man. His eyes, now glowing brightly, locked onto mine, and I felt an overwhelming urge to move towards him, as if he was commanding me. A realization hit me. This wasn't a warning. This was a trap. I stumbled back, breaking eye contact and shaking off the feeling. The old man's smile faded into a snarl, his face contorting with anger. "Go now," he hissed, his voice no longer soft but threatening, "before it's too late." I didn't hesitate. I bolted for the door, crashing through it and sprinting into the forest. I could still hear the old man's chanting behind me, but it was no longer comforting. It was menacing, like a curse being cast. As dawn broke and I reached the main trail, I found Joseph waiting, breathless and pale. I quickly told him about the old man, but his face only grew more concerned. "There's no old man living in those woods," Joseph said, his voice firm. "If you saw someone, it wasn't a man. It was one of them." Back at camp, I tried to shake off the encounter, but something didn't feel right. As I was packing up, I found a small bone in my pocket, carved with the same symbols I'd seen in the cabin. My heart sank. Joseph's face turned pale when he saw it. "That's a mark," he whispered. "They know who you are now. They'll always know." As we left the ranch, the weight of the old man's words pressed down on me. The Skinwalker hadn't just let me go, it had marked me. And somewhere out there it was waiting, playing a game I didn't understand. So if you ever think about challenging the unknown, remember my story. Some things are best left alone. And if you ever meet an old man in the woods, don't trust him. He might just be waiting to pull you deeper into the darkness.